Hello there, everyone. How are you doing on this here Monday morning? Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. My name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And the things I love most to do are helping people who are trying to uplevel in their careers and their business to help them do so in an empowered way that's sustainable and that is authentic, right? Allows them to maximize the relationships that they have to achieve their goals. And we are finishing up a series on shifting in your career and your business and what that means and what that entails. And today we're talking about shifting as a growth opportunity. A lot of times when we've talked about what it looks like to shift in a career or in your business, there's a lot of fear attached to it, right? Because there's uncertainty there. And so one of the things we've been doing as we have been having this conversation is recognizing the shift in seasons professionally, what that means, respecting your reflection time during all of that, how you well, that's some of the networking pieces, but how we also need to be able to lean into the shift and what that looks like. And then here we are today talking about when it can be viewed as, or how to view it as an opportunity, as a growth opportunity as well. And so, what I want to toss out there to you all is that if you are in the midst of a career shift, a shift in your business, whatever it may be, that you view it not with fear and uncertainty. Those are completely natural, but also to try and see if you can settle into viewing it with some curiosity. Because when you view it with some curiosity, that means you're asking questions and you're actively engaged and start to think about things in a different way, so that it's not the what if in a bad, like what if something bad happens, what if I can't do this, what if I can't pay these bills, what if I can't bring in enough business. But instead, in a what if, it's like what if, in terms of wondering what the full capabilities might be, right? What the full possibilities might be. So I'm going to lay out a couple of what if and I wonder statements here for you to think about as you work through a shift, or if you feel one coming. Because, a lot of times we identify those things as they are coming up. And instead, I want to encourage you that instead of shoving it under the carpet per se, that instead you open yourself up to receiving what the potential is and acknowledging it, as opposed to being in denial, and then actively engaging with it, in terms of trying to acknowledge what are the growth opportunities that are presented in this shifting time. Okay. And, this is something that can be really challenging, particularly if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, right? Because it's not as easy as saying, oh, okay, I'm going to go, quote, find a new job. It could be a matter of how you shift in what your services are, in the level of services that you have, like if you're shifting in what those services look like. So it may not be complete change in what you're doing, but rather in the depth of what you're doing. And there's a lot there. And I've seen a lot of that going on in recent months. And it was actually the impetus for this series, where I've been seeing a lot of it professionally for those folks who are in regular 9 to 5s, as well as those people who are in their own business and entrepreneurs who are like, what is it that I'm really going to be doing next? Because there's clearly a stall here, or maybe feeling a little stuck, and it's time to decide what to do next. Okay. So when you look at shifting as a growth opportunity and start asking your question, asking yourself, I wonder and what if in these terms. The first one is what if this could lead to a better job, a promotion, or a biz opportunity? Like if you ask yourself, what if this could? And when you ask yourself that, then hopefully one of the natural things that flows from that is, well, what are those opportunities? Well, what if it actually is the groundwork that can be laid for a new job, a new position, for furthering your career, for uh, for a new business opportunity that you hadn't considered before. Okay. And when you do that, I highly recommend that you not just let this stuff swirl around in your head, but the things that come up that you actually start writing them down. Number one, when you write stuff down, it makes it real to you. I always say this, and it gets it out of our head because we're really bad about just letting things swirl around and not bringing any conclusion to it or allowing yourself room to come back and reflect on it. So and instead you lose it, right? So when you write it down, it allows you to have your thoughts on paper and to be able to come back to it and reassess, think some more about it, go a little bit further in depth. So I always encourage that. But what if, this could lead to a better job or promotion? What if this could lead to a new business opportunity? And then start to consider what those things might be, right? And is there something that you've been looking to do, and I'm bleeding into a little bit because it's all things start to feed off of each other. But a lot of times there's already something we've been thinking about or considered, but maybe hadn't really fully because you're a little scared, you're uncertain about what that might look like. Okay. So that's the first what if. The second what if is what if this is a chance to explore that new or other thing I've been wanting to do? What if this is that time? What would it take for you to follow through on that? What are other things you need to take into consideration as you're like even thinking about exploring it? Remember, explore is just that. It is not a commitment to do, but it is a commitment to ask more questions, to talk to more people. This is a perfect opportunity to leverage your network and ask some more questions. If you need to do so discreetly, that's in the, building your personal mastermind kind of piece, right? That's where that comes in, where you identify a handful of people that you trust, that you can be really upfront and open about what's happening and get their feedback from them on it. Okay. I'm happy to refer you to those old coffee chats, and or if you need help with that, give me a call because that is one of those things we definitely would love to work on. But here's the thing, just ask yourself those questions. What does it mean to explore? And it means going and doing a little bit more research, going and having those conversations, having those, that reflection time to say, hey, this would be really cool if, right? That's another one. It's like, this would be really cool if. And when you have that really cool if moment, go with that. Don't suck it up and say, oh, never mind. That's just ridiculous. That's crazy, whatever. If you are truly in a time of shifting in your professional career, it's absolutely worth the time and effort to allow yourself the freedom to explore. Because what are you losing? A little brain power, maybe? A little bit of time because you go take the time to ask some questions, to do some research, to schedule a lunch or coffee that you probably needed to schedule with someone anyways. There's really not a downside to that. And if you're like, well, what if someone finds out? What? That you're considering your options, whether it's for tomorrow or whether it's for 2 years from now, right? No one in their right mind expects someone to stay where they are for extreme long times, especially in this environment, right? There's been a lot of movement in the last few years, and that will continue to happen. But again, do so at where you feel doing so discreetly. Um, it doesn't have to. You don't have to. Blow a what is it? A mega horn or whatever, a megaphone. There we go, megaphone, and make an announcement about it. But it is worth the time to lean into it. Yes, more leaning, and to ask those questions and to think about this would be really cool if I could, take this little time, take a leave of absence, go on a sabbatical. What does that look like? Right? So think about that second one. What if this is a chance to explore that new or other thing I've always wanted to do, regardless of what that is? And then thirdly, it's I wonder what the possibilities really could be if I'm not locked into whatever your current situation is. Okay. This again is a little deviation off of the other things we've already been talking about. But when you start thinking about what the possibilities are, and you take not just the boundaries around, off of what you're doing currently, but if you take it off of, take the lid off of what you're thinking, what you think is possible, and could really go for it. This is the time to go dig up those old notes. Like if you've had some old notes or quote goals or resolutions from previous years that you didn't quite achieve, or you're like, oh, well, that didn't really happen. This is the time to pull those things back up. This is the time, right? Because this may be the opportunity you have to really say, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. Let me go explore this. Let me go check this out. What if we really could go, do this thing for 6 months and then come back? Or what if I really could go, take on this project? Okay. You really have to allow yourself to that full piece of what I say is, I wonder what the possibilities really could be if I wasn't locked into my current situation. And there's so much there. Like my words are just truly not even sufficient to capture the richness and the depth of what is possible when you allow yourself to ask those questions, the what ifs, the I wonders, but in a positive way rather than in a negative way. So it really and truly is about flipping things on their head. And instead of going automatically to the negative of like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not going to be able to pay my bills? What if I'm not going to be able to find a new gig, in enough time? It's what if I can go explore? What if I can take this opportunity? I can take this time to go do some things I've been wanting to do, but hadn't had a chance to do yet. Where can that lead you? Because I'm telling you, when I've talked to folks who've taken that and run with it, they come up with all kinds of other things that come up in the process. That's the piece about it. When you go exploring these opportunities, when you go exploring some questions you have about something, there are new things that come to you that you never could have anticipated. This is the part that makes me excited, right? When I have folks who like go take a sabbatical, go disappear for a couple of months, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, my phone was ringing off the wall while I was doing that, just because I finally decided to get away and not be bothered, right? That is a true story. That is not a made up thing. Like that is a true story from a client, right? What if you decide to go pursue that new project to take on that little side gig and someone decides, "Hey, can we bring you on to do this full time?" Right? Those things are real opportunities. Those are real things that can come when you pursue it as a growth opportunity. When you pursue shifting as a growth, how can you grow as a person in your career and personally? Right? A lot of times people will lean into the business and career part, but where is it that you need to be able to grow as a person? This is when I have folks who will say, I'm going to go take that sabbatical. I'm going to go take this time off to go explore some things that I hadn't had a chance to. This is the time to do that. Okay. So that's what I have for you today. It's a lot of questions, not a lot of extra in-depth content, but really about you asking yourself the right questions and then digging deep on what the answers that come to you, and then to keep following up with that. Keep thinking about as you shift in what it is you're doing professionally in your career, in your business, what are the growth opportunities that are presented to you that are absolutely worth exploring some. Okay? That's it for today. If you want to talk about networking, we're going to be talking about networking on Wednesday again to round out this month. And then we'll be starting a new month next week already. Can you believe that? So if you have any topics, ideas, suggestions, always welcome to receive them. Otherwise, we're going to go straight into our fall professional development conversations, which this is absolutely the time to start having those conversations as you prepare to end this year on a strong note and to build forward for a new year. Oh, can't believe we're already saying that. All right. If you have any questions, if you have any need for assistance with some strategic planning, some career development, reach out, send me a DM, and let's get some time on the schedule. Okay. Take care. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Bye bye.